wake up, you go to work. You trade your precious, limited time, your energy, your life for money. But what if the money you're saving is quietly stealing from you every single day? Welcome back to Island Crypto, where we help you understand why and how cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin in particular, help you not only survive, but thrive in today's turbulent world. Today's video is going to help you understand the functions of money and why not all money is equal. For our discussion, it's important for us to review the three core functions of money. 1. It's a medium of exchange, meaning it can be used to facilitate transactions between parties, eliminating the inefficiencies of barter by providing a universally accepted method for buying and selling. 2. It's a store of value. It preserves its value over time, allowing individuals to save and defer consumption. This means you can hold money and use it in the future without it losing too much purchasing power, assuming it's stable. Finally, at number 3, it's a unit of account, providing a common measure to value goods and services, making it easier to compare prices and keep financial records. In this video, we're focusing on just one of those functions, store of value. Because if your money can't store the value of your time and effort, what's the point of saving it? Part 1, the economics of value. All assets, including money, are valued based on supply and demand. Let's break that down. If something is limited in supply and more people want it, the item is said to be scarce. As a result, persons competing to get the item attempt to outbid each other, driving the price up. On the other hand, when there's more supply than demand, more of the item is available than people actually want. The seller is then forced to reduce the selling price to persuade more persons to buy his excess stock. The result? Price goes down. Sounds simple, right? But when we apply this to money, things get interesting. In this video, we'll compare three forms of money. Gold. Fiat currency, like the United States dollar, the USD, or the Jamaican dollar, the JMD. And last but not least, Bitcoin, our favorite digital currency. Part 2. Gold, the Old King. Gold has been considered the benchmark for money for centuries, especially as a store of value. Its supply isn't finite like Bitcoin, but it's limited. Why? Because gold is hard to find, hard to mine, and hard to refine. As a result, the global stocks of gold grow by less than 2% each year. That's not perfect, but it's far better than fiat currencies like the Jamaican dollar or the US dollar, both of which can be printed endlessly. With less than 2% more gold being added to global stores each year, gold remains relatively scarce compared to the demand for it. As such, gold holds its price quite well, making it a good store of value. That said, gold has other shortcomings, like its weight and its divisibility. Try taking a brick of gold with you anywhere, or breaking off a piece to pay for a cup of coffee. Part 3. Fiat money, the system we inherited. Let's talk about how we got here in a few critical steps. Until 1944, most currencies were backed by gold. That meant you could trade your paper money for actual gold in a government vault. As a result, the value of paper money was tied to something tangible, gold. In practical terms, governments had to hold an equivalent amount of gold in their treasuries to match the value of dollars they had circulating in the economy. The Bretton Woods Agreement. But in 1944, after World War II, 44 countries agreed to create a new global financial system, and the Bretton Woods Agreement was born. In it, the US dollar was pegged to gold at $35 per ounce. All other major currencies were then pegged to the US dollar, not gold as they were before. The end of Bretton Woods, the start of the fiat currency era. In 1971, final ties between fiat money and gold were removed when then US President Richard Nixon ceased the dollar's convertibility to gold. Just like that, everything changed, and we moved into the era of fiat money. Money backed by nothing but government decree. A dollar was worth a certain weight in gold. Now a dollar was worth $1. Why? Simply because the government says so. Part 4. Time theft. Here's why this matters. Money is a store of human capital. When you work 8 hours a day, you're trading your life energy for money. trusting that its value will last. So, the same way a battery converts electrical energy to chemical energy so it can be stored for later use, money is supposed to be a way to store the energy you spend throughout your life, creating value for others in a form that you can use later. But here's the problem. With no requirement to secure a countervailing asset like gold for each dollar in circulation, governments have nothing limiting them and can print fiat money endlessly. You, on the other hand, have limited hours in your life. That means you're trading a finite, and therefore scarce and valuable asset, your time, for an infinite, and therefore comparatively common and less valuable one, fiat money. And from the supply-demand dynamics we discussed earlier, as more money is printed day by day, the value of each dollar falls day by day. So even though you're giving the same 8 hours of work you always did, you're no longer receiving 8 hours of stored value as compensation for your workday. You're in fact getting less and less each day for the same work. That's a broken contract. You're doing your part, but the system isn't doing its. Part 5. A real-world example of futility, saving in fiat currency. True to our name, Island Crypto, we're bringing this one home for our Islander community and using the Jamaican dollar for this example. In 1995, the exchange rate between the Jamaican and US dollar was 35.14 JMD to 1 USD. Today, June 2025, the exchange rate is approximately 160 JMD to 1 USD. That's a 78% loss in value versus the USD over 30 years. Had you been saving all that money, the effect of that devaluation would have been like watching 23 of those 30 years of work simply evaporate. This is a fundamental shortcoming of the fiat system because knowing that our money loses value over time, we're incentivized to spend it all while its value is highest, and that's as soon as we get it. If we're spending our money, we're not saving it. While great for the economy, this has significant negative implications for individuals, families, and society as a whole over the long run. So back to our saving in JMD example. What's the reward you're actually left with from 30 years of work? A mere 7 years in value. Is that a fair exchange? You tell us. If that wasn't bad enough, you would have been taxed another 25 to 30%. So in reality, for 30 years' work, you would have actually received just over 5 years' compensation in 1995 dollars. The Jamaican dollar example is stark and served its purpose of illustration, but don't be fooled into complacency if you live elsewhere. Similar dynamics apply everywhere. The location may change and the numbers may vary, but the same principle applies. Saving in fiat means watching your hard work evaporate over time. What's more, since the C-19 crisis, trillions of USD were printed by the US government. This was done to prop up the US economy during the crisis and to facilitate economic recovery after it. It's estimated that between 40 and 80% of all US dollars ever created were printed in just the 4 years between 2020 and 2024. Returning to supply-demand dynamics once more, consider what that did to the real value of the USD. Is it any surprise that the USD lost significant purchasing power over the same period? Global reserve currency or not, over the long term, the USD has crashed in value just like all other fiat currencies. In fact, the value of the USD in 1913 was just over 26 times the value of 1 USD from 2020. That's a 96% reduction. And since global trade is priced in USD, this is not a US-only problem. In practical terms, it means that over the same period, all other countries imported US inflation into their own economies. Your groceries, fuel, and supplies now cost more as a result, even if your local currency stayed the same. Part 6. Enter Bitcoin. So what's the alternative? Bitcoin. Unlike fiat or even gold, Bitcoin has a hard-coded supply limit. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in existence. What's more, over 95% of that supply is already in existence, so the risk of asset dilution is very low. The remaining 5% will be mined over the next 115 years until 2140. Additionally, of the 19+ million BTC already mined, it's estimated that as many as 2.5 million have been lost. That's nearly 12% of Bitcoin's supply, significantly increasing its scarcity. Right now, Bitcoin's annual inflation rate is lower than that of gold, making it the scarcest major asset on Earth. On top of all that, Bitcoin's demand and market dominance are growing faster and faster each day for a myriad of reasons, some of which we'll share now. Among them, only 450 new Bitcoin are added to Bitcoin's available stock daily, but Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, ETFs, alone, are buying 5 to 10 times that amount daily, draining all available supply. Additionally, multiple U.S. states are now passing legislation to buy and hold Bitcoin in strategic asset reserves, with more states joining the race each day. Public corporations, too, are adding Bitcoin to their treasuries daily, with 60 such companies already holding 3% of total Bitcoin available. Legislation prohibiting banks in the U.S. from holding Bitcoin and offering Bitcoin services to customers was rescinded by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission in Q1 2025. So banks now have the green light to buy Bitcoin and offer related services. Internationally, nation-states are also getting involved in purchasing Bitcoin for their strategic reserves. In short, Bitcoin demand keeps rising while supply stays fixed or even reduces as more Bitcoin is lost. This is simple economics. Fixed supply plus rising demand equals rising price. That's why Bitcoin has outpaced every other asset in history in terms of price appreciation since its launch in 2009. Not just by a little either, but having grown millions of percent since creation. Want proof? Let's take a look at the Bitcoin Pizza Day story to bring the point home. Bitcoin Pizza Day. Why is Bitcoin Pizza Day celebrated on May 22nd each year? In 2010, a Floridian programmer paid 10,000 BTC for 2 pizzas worth approximately $40 at the time. This was the first commercial transaction conducted with Bitcoin. Little did he know at the time that eventually, at today's Bitcoin price, 15 years later, those pizzas would have cost him just over 1 billion United States dollars. That sounds crazy, but it just shows how far Bitcoin has come and, quite frankly, how much potential for growth it still has, given that global adoption is only about 3%. What happens to Bitcoin price when global adoption reaches 6%, 10%, 20%? The possibilities are staggering. And while growth may slow, the real power of Bitcoin isn't just profit, it's preservation. Final thoughts. Even if you're not chasing moonshot gains, you owe it to your future self to consider this. Do you really want to keep storing your life's work in a system that silently robs you? Or would you rather store it in an asset designed to protect your time, honor your labor, and hold your value? In short, that's why we all desperately need Bitcoin. In upcoming episodes, we'll show you how to safely find access to, purchase, and securely store Bitcoin. Until then, stay informed, stay free, and stack wisely.